Alrighty. Hello there. I need to fiddle with a variety of things as we get rolling here. So here's what we're going to do. Firstly, I'm going to deal with the situation with... I deal with a number of situations, don't mind me. As always, it's a little derpy around here. Nothing wrong with that. I'll just catch up however I see fit. We will do what we gotta do. To do things like bring that chat window in. There we go. And I gotta run around dealing with like my laundry and stuff. So tell you what, let's go over to this view and I'll be right back. Hey. Before long, you will see me with a different look. I went and got myself some red PJs that fit better than these ones do. Hey, Bo. So yeah. Welcome to the chat. I need to do something so that I stop staring at my face on the screen here. That always drives me bonkers. I cannot look at the mic, it seems, when my dumb silly face is all over the screen so much. So I am going to fuss with things a little bit while trying to get this all together. Don't mind that. I got a couple of hours available for coding and a goal in mind. I just need to sort this stuff out because, as always, I just kind of lose my mind and can't function when stuff is too awkward and inconvenient for me. So let's deal with this. Firstly, I gotta set this up so that I can't see my face. Otherwise, I won't be able to function. I'll be trying to code and then I'll look at something moving off the corner of my eye. It's like the watching television problem. Something's moving off the corner of your eye and then you have to stare at it and stare at it and stare at it. So that's got that solved. I have my audio ready to go. As you can hear. It's not crazy loud, but well, I can make it a little louder. And like I said, I've got a plan. I am very close to being done with the reverb we've been working on. I gave it a name, not just forward verb, and I ended up incorporating pretty much everything that relates to a householder matrix. What do we call it? Forward feedback? This thing that we're doing, I made it go. And I took out some of the things that exist in forward verb, like the vibrato, stuff like that. And if you saw my posting of the Purist Console 2, you heard it repeatedly, this new version of the reverb. So yeah, let's get ready to do the thing and jump right in. I feel kind of scattered. I don't think I really am going to have a lot of chatter for me. And part of that is because I've just been pushing real hard lately. Like I said, I was working on this until 4 o'clock in the morning, not too many days ago. And then I put in a over 6-hour session recording the music that I used to demo Purist Console 2. And the reason that took a while is because there was a lot of things sort of coming together. And as such, it was effective. I'm finding, like, when this kind of stuff goes right, then hello, Felipe. I wonder if I should go for less latency. I don't think I can change that on the fly. Meh. Whatever. I will see comments. I have your chat like right there where I can see it, and it's also going onto the stream. So yay. So I'm finding that when stuff goes well, and by that I also mean things like not running into unreasonable problems, like the problems I was having with video for a while there, I'm not having with the Razer capture box. And this is good. This means I can focus on the things I need to focus on. There's just a pile of various stuff that I just grind away at patiently. Some of it isn't even plugin related. I've got when I make dinner, I like making tacos, and I've got this little home theater set up that has this old Sony receiver and a passel of little sort of omnidirectional satellite speakers. Like, I found these things and bought them used, and went, oh, this is kind of cool. Let's try that. And they're almost like a variation on the insanely expensive MBL radio strollers, because these are much smaller speakers, but both the little tiny woofer thingy and the tweeter fire directly into a sort of wave shaper, causing the output to be more like pretty close to 180 degrees and fairly well balanced. Like, the polar pattern of these speakers is exceptionally good. And then the Sony receiver started dying to the point where you had to whack it on the top repeatedly to make it cough back into life. And I have become done with that. I'm going to get some kind of sound bar or something to replace it. But the less of these things are sitting around being super broken, the more I can jump into like a 6-hour stream and be basically fine. Like, it's not doing me terrible damage struggling with something for that long if most things are working basically okay, and if I remember to not stress out over everything. So we're dealing with that, and we're going to do a little bit of that today with the final coding on this Verbity plugin. As you can see, it actually looks completely different from the previous one, but I like it anyway. And I've got a couple of new innovations here that weren't existing on the previous one. So I better load that up. I wonder whether I have it in recent projects. I do. So I'd better load this up and go looking for the final things that I want to bring over. We can see the previous one is code that resembles, in some ways, I edited some stuff out. The don't mind me, got stuck on a thought. It's arranged kind of the same way that my Reverb plugins were arranged. So we got these sequences of things going along. What the new one has is it's kind of streamlined. So it's defining these delay sizes, and I have an entirely new set of lengths for all these. And some of them, the 4 hour, not 4 hour, 4 into the morning, it was way more than 4 hours. The 4 in the morning hackathon to try to get this to work was because I knew I wanted to use it for yesterday's jamming and getting ready for doing the plugin posting. And it seemed as if everything was super broken. Because I would get it, I would run it on this machine. I would copy it over to the main machine and everything would die. And I'm going, like, is it just not able to run these long delay buffers that I've got? Because I was instantiating really long delay buffers. And turns out this, for whatever reason, this form of IIR filter just died a screaming death on the main machine. Like, no matter what I did with it, too. It was really weird. So I have the denormalization, not only on the input sample coming in, but there's also one on each of these IIR filters. And it kind of gives me to think I could probably do an update in place of some of my other plugins that, like, it's possible I can get insanely higher performance out of something like Density or Density 2 by throwing this in there. Because for whatever reason, on those plugins, it didn't immediately die a horrible death, but I still had IIR filters going on in there of this form. And for whatever reason, this particular plugin with all of the feedback matrices, all these delay tanks and stuff, put it in a situation where this filter just died. And you might also notice this is a different form of filter from the previous version, which was doing a biquad filter. And that is also part of the innovations going into the new Reverb plugin. When it does apply a filter either on the input or that's also on the output, it's not trying to do a IIR style, it's trying to do the, it's not trying to do the biquad style where you can get a much deeper cutoff. It's trying to do that more tilt EQ style, IIR style. And I've been pretty happy with how it worked out. So basically where I was at, and I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to do this. Again, last few days have been brutal in a nice way, but brutal as far as just intensity of going deep into this stuff. So it stands to reason that I'm a little bit drained. But I might see about, like, maybe we should shut off Verbity for a moment and go back into this guy, because we were doing this extensive series of hacking, which all should be still there and available, around building in and maybe I do have that happening. A feedback effect that would make the low frequencies rumble more. So I ended up making it be literally noise, because all of my feedback effects were not exactly helpful. But I'm now questioning that. Like, I suppose first let's listen to what we had. And we might as well use our test things for it. So here's our snare drum hit. And if I do, I guess it'll still be a recent effect. These things do still have an effect. This does not. And as near as I can tell, I'm not sure whether filter does this or not. I just know that it was set up so that it would maximize on regen, and I was fixing to try to make it so that it would turn into literal thunder as it went. Although some of my earlier attempts at it made it turn into low frequency notes or DC offset or something unpleasant like that. So seeing as we've got this, we've just investigated that. That's where we left off. If we change this so that our feedbacks, and we are apparently doing full darkening here. All of this ended up being unnecessary. Like the, oh, hello, we commented out thunder amount. Does this do anything? It does not. But we could put it back. Let's put it back to have something more useful to play with. That was 6, if I'm not mistaken. So now it'll actually show us that. And I think what I was shooting for, maybe I should turn my levels down again, because I might end up, we might make some loud noises here. I don't want to blow up my woofers or anything. Because if I can get this good, I'm going to include it in Verbity. But if I can't, I'm not. And let's see, we've got one, two, we will take Thunder B directly. I think we had it set up where it was this tiny amount, and we're not even correcting for. Oh no, we're setting up the regen. It's being handled differently in Verbity. I'll tell you about that once I finish this. So instead of our We want to leave that sitting there, and might as well use the same one being fed into the same place and go from there. I don't think I had that capitalized. So this is us building this up. It's going to be very heavily filtered. It was not capitalized. And I may or may not even get any action out of this right away. But I might. And we'll find out by just trying it and seeing what it does. That's the wrong plugin. Let's do this so we can see what we're doing. So we'll use our little snare drum and see what we get. Okay, we have a range of adjustment that clearly will do the thing. Now let's see what we get when fooling with it. Okay, that was intense. Yeah, this goes crazy very fast. This gets intense real fast. Smaller adjustments. And we just lost the signal. So yeah, this particular way of doing it, not great. There might be some changes makeable here. One of them is we were doing this heavy filtering. And this here is heavy filtering. To soften the raw white noise that we had. We're not dealing with raw white noise anymore. We're dealing with the reverb effect. So we might want to just dial all of that back. We're still in 2 poles of filtering, which arguably might be too much. But we're going to do our 2 poles of filtering, or maybe just 1. No, let's leave it 2 for now, because we have much less filtering going on. And this is probably still going to go into runaway bad behavior, but we'll see how it does it. So are we going to blow up now? I can easily make it blow up by just cranking the gain up a little bit more, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see what we got. Another possibility is to put some kind of additional delay in, or an all-pass filter, or I'm not sure what. Or sign it, and that way if it gets into an overrun, it will, and we're starting to get our feedback in. And when it builds up a lot, it's a simple note. So Here's a thought. I could apply it with the inverse of this regen control. So it's, in fact, you get more of it the less of this you have, so we can set it so that it just booms extra hard when the regen is already very low. And we can fool with that a little bit right now. How much of this can we crank? Okay, that's giving us a little bit of sustain, so what we can do is do our 2 pulse of filter, and that's going to roll stuff off a lot more, and give ourselves a little more range of adjustment here. In fact, we might be able to survive a large amount of range of well, I don't know, regen needs to get taken down to a rather small amount, although Thunder B, this filtered thing is going to end up at roughly the same volume, so in theory we could have this all being, the amount being like 1. Let's see what happens when we do that. Because again, if I turn regen down all the way, this way I can probably make it feedback in a most unpleasant fashion. And what we'll do is make it be this combination of filtering and regeneration, where you have to have the full filtering engaged to get this to start sustaining. And then it'll adapt itself, and if we have full regen, we'll have none of this. So let's give that a try. Hey, L2. And Thunder has to go right down now. Wum. That was amusing. Okay, this feeds back real easy. We're gonna need like well under 1. Nothing there. Option up. Nope, we're getting feedback already. See on the meters there? But I'm guessing that's literal DC. So that gives me one immediate thought, which is, what if I added it negatively? If I have DC, will it be any different if we subtract this other value rather than add it? Also, since it's kind of DC, maybe we're filtering too hard still. So tell you what, let's take Thunder B away. We'll do this all with the first one. It'll be less steep filtering, and it'll also push the subsonics less hard if we're filtering it less steeply. And you know what, while we're at it, always worth making 5 changes at once, right? We know we're going to at least be from 0 to 0.1 because everything else was just going crazy, so let's build that right in. And away we go again. And we should have feedback here. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but I had no sound in there. Feedback? Actually, no. No, the way we're filtering, no, it's creeping up. I see the levels sneaking up. So one thing we could do is try this on a different track, one that has a whole bunch of lows. Hello, alien kittens. And might be a little loud, but we'll roll it and we'll see how this builds. Regen is supposed to be small like that. Room size, I think, could be just about anything. So Purist Console 2 is a variant of Purist Console. Okay, now what setting do I need to make that stop doing that? See where the 975 will do it. So yeah, Purist Console 2, it's a variation of Purist Console. It's Purist Console with the anti-aliasing filtering added to it, but the filtering is being done in a different way. Okay, this is working. I think I can make it be just control it a hair. 0.973. Is our magic number for that. We don't need Thunder A or B because we just don't. Instead, we will go back into the settings, find it, and refactor it so that it no longer indicates that we have two poles of this. And that goes here as well. And back into this. So here's the deal. And I'm not quite sure how this will work or even whether it's consistent between this and Verbity. But what I can do is have this be relative to the filtering, which is param 1. So it's going to be going off of that, and that'll be relevant to what we're doing with Verbity, because Verbity has a filter. It's a different kind of filter, but it's still a filter. And then we also need to scale it by the inverse of the regeneration, because the thing about regeneration is that it is, param 2 here, and I need to make it so that if we have regeneration cranked all the way, the thunder is not being applied at all. Because almost any that we do apply winds up becoming a mess. So regen comes from param 2. So it's the filter times the inverse of regen. So cranking it all the way means that we get 0, no thunder effect, times this magic number, which is what's working with our filter in here. And if we made this be higher pitched, crossover higher, we'd be having more feedback happening. And if we crossed it off lower, actually no, if we crossed it off lower, we would be having more feedback happening. If we crossed it off higher, we'll be getting progressively less, because this doesn't change, but this is how much of it sticks around. And how much of it sticks around, that's the factor that matters. And we'll leave that sitting there so that I can, actually no, let's not leave it sitting there. Let us simply copy it to the desktop, making sure that I got the right number of parens. Apparently not. It makes that noise when I've got that part wrong. I think we had this enclosed in here. We're doing something with all this. Anyways, I wanted to copy this to the desktop and then maybe delete it, because it reminds me that I have a random number on tap for all of these plugins for free. We'll call it that. FP to the rand. And that at least gives me a start on what I'm doing. Although I haven't really polished it, I haven't really worked out exactly what it means, but as you know, I just experiment with stuff anyway, so that doesn't worry me. And time to run this again. Now let's see what we get now that we've got some other things involved. So, full filtering, not that we're hearing the filtering, but this is for principle. Thunder mount is now not being applied by this at all, I don't think. Is it? I think it's not. Yeah, thunder amount is now not relating to that control at all. It is a factor of the filter control and regen. So we're not seeing anything happen from that, but if we have the full regen, it should not go into crazy runaway because we have no thunder being added. Now if we start adjusting that, some of these settings might give us some of the desired behavior. Let's try halfway. Yeah, definitely not going into runaway. We kind of need to set it up so that it will, to see what we're doing. So let's take away that dial back factor. Now it's just the raw slider, which is going to end up being a filter slider, times the inverse of the regen slider, and we need to see where it sits regarding this stuff. I'll probably get through to the end of this by the time my stream is done. I got about an hour and 15 minutes. I do have something to do after this, so it's not going to be a long one. So in theory, we now have Runaway. But not with Regen at 1. Because we're still setting it to 0 this way. Okay, that was amusing. Hey, we made it happen. So technically, now what we can do is use this filter control to dial in at what point does that start happening and going crazy. This becomes more fun. This becomes like, let's find what the relevant settings are by fooling with them. Apparently it's not that. Let's keep playing. Well, something is going different than I expected. I shouldn't have been able to do that. So Thunder amount, get param 6. We're not doing anything with this get sample rate. It is being scaled by this stuff. Oh, I remember. See what we've got here? That's 0.0973. We still need to be doing a multiply. It just, I'm doing far too much here. On the other hand, this does give me a chance to dial in stuff. There's no point in having it set up quite this way. No need to recompile. We'll still keep playing. I just disabled the thing that I did where I had the control going from 0 to 1 rather than 0 to 0.1. If I now set it to exactly 0.1, it's not going to go into Runaway quite as enthusiastically. But I can probably still do it. Let's double that. Well, let's increase that. No, let's double that. Because this is twice what the danger area was. I see. Okay, split the difference. Still doing it. It's funny how it tends to be one side or the other, but that's how increasing little infinitesimal things works. .11. See, when I sweep the regen around, sometimes I'll hit those spots where it'll start going out of control. Let's try 0.125. Nope. Oh God. Okay, that was a dangerous moment. When I sweep it like that with stuff in the buffer, that's when it might kick in. Not kicking in yet. So what if we do 0.13? At some point, something I'm going to do is going to make this start hanging on to information. And that'll show me the threshold of where this relates. Because it was pretty easy to, oh, there we go. Back to 0.125. So, also, I wonder what happens if I have a different room size. Using this little tiny trace amount of something. Let's go back to the 1.3 that did feedback. And I think I might take a moment to put another log in my fireplace. That's kind of dying down. Give me a second. My unorthodox streamer techniques. YouTube Gold. Hey, you still get the occasional explosion, right? Leave that going. Watch how I leave it to do a DC offset and then blow up my subwoofers while I'm away from the... Hopefully not. Let's hope for the best. As in not doing that. That ought to go. It'll take a little more fooling with, but and we're not blowing up. Yeah, and I'm going to be wanting to keep a bit of an eye on the wood stove. So I've got it ramping up in heat again. It had died down rather a lot. Like I've said on other occasions, when I do that, that's a legitimate way of dividing my attention. Because it's one of those things like having a pot on the stove. boiling water where you need to remember to keep that on your attention. I think this is close enough to start incorporating it in the other one. I'm not really noticing much about it, but I know that it is having an effect, and it's meant to be sort of a just about a subliminal effect, just barely happening, but it's playing its role. Tell you what, and I think that is going to be consistent across. Hello, do we have feedback? We do. Okay, so 0.13 is not our friend, but this is our way of finding out how to make this go away again. Option, click. Do 8. No, it's still running away. .12, it's still running away. To the point where I better stop that because it'll hurt my speakers. Might end up dialing right back to 0.1. In fact, that looks not unlikely. I mean, seeing as it is creeping up and starting to feed back even now. Yeah, we got our little note going on. Let's see if it dies away at all this way. It is. It is. Okay, so we're going to call that acceptable. This is like homeopathic bass heading. That's fine though. That's what I had in mind. Just manipulating it a little bit. In fact, now that we know that we're doing that, yeah, now that we know that we're doing that, that still seems about right. It might be worth doing another little test. Remembering to do that. That's not how to do that. That is most definitely not how to do that. Nor is that. But that gets me about the right thing. Times center pitch. And that's param 1. And if it is at 0, then we have, so we need to crank it all the way up to start making it behave normally. So quickly do that before I forget what I've done. Fire it up and we'll see what we get. I might have to jump up and deal with the wood stove. It's warming up nicely now. You get cranked up all the way. There we go. Okay, didn't like that very much. How about if I leave it alone? Nope, still blowing up. Whatever we done, we done it not right. Goodbye. I probably have it 10 times too effective. Let's try this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did have it 10 times too effective. Is good. Let's fix. Now it doesn't go crazy, but we can persuade it to go crazy by fooling with the roll-off. But it's going to take a little longer to do. How about now? I know if I just crank it over in this direction, it'll go kaboom. Hi, man. Ayo. Up. I'm starting to see a signal. So now I can dial this back to make it go away again. We still got that DC floating around there. That's the last thing we want, really. So, nope, still there. Now it's creeping back down. Probably making the amplifiers unhappy, depending upon how much they're DC coupled, which they're probably not. I don't know, I get some interesting behavior out of these speaker cones at times. Yeah, if I remove that, it's not going to start building, but it's this delicate balance. So maybe I could make it do weird things with regen. So I don't know that was necessarily the most feedbacky position regen could be. Or indeed whether they're different. Like there might be a sweet spot in here somewhere where it optimally latches on to this low frequency stuff. I don't seem to be finding it though. I think I might just have a... well, hopefully it's not stressing you out too badly. You just have to watch it. And you don't have to watch it. Typically when I'm doing a long stream and cranking away on this stuff, after about 4 or 5 hours, everybody's freaking gone except me. But some of that might be because some of the people who watch my streams are in the UK or Europe. And as such, when I push late into the evening, it's like ridiculously early in the morning over there, and I can understand how people would normally just go to sleep. It might be evidence that I just have a large European following, which is fine with me. That's always somewhat been the factor. It does affect what times I could choose to do streams or not, and how late I could push them. So that's interesting. Generally better if I try to get going around 11 or so, rather than previous time I got going around 3 in the afternoon and I went for like 6 hours. And that means it was starting at like 9 at night in Europe. So I can have a look at that one. We have an RT60 of 27 million. An RT60 of very long. There's also this little pop in the middle of the delay time. Oh, hello. Do we have runaway? Yes, no? We'll wait and see. Let's wait it out. Let's wait it out and see. This is pretty close to infinite regen. I'm going to get out the calculator and figure out what my correct number is for this. Because I feel like this is working fairly well. .94. Under pitch is Okay. That is our new magic number for the... You know, I don't really need help. Mostly what I need is patience, because there are certain things like porting everything to the M1 Mac that are just going to happen at the time that they happen. I'm moving them along as well as I can. That might be somewhat frustrating for people who would like it to be happening sooner, but I will be getting to it. I just have like other stuff that gets in the way, and this is one of those things. I'd like to get this reverb done and post it as a plugin so people could have it, because I needed to use it on the track for yesterday. And I'm going to be needing to use it on a variety of things too. So this is a good time to start porting this to the new reverb. You know what? So we need a variable called thunder. And we need to set it to 0. Perhaps an odd thing to be doing, but hey, homeopathic subsonics for the win. I'm feeling like this will have some kind of positive effect. And now we dig into this and find out how this is working. Oh, goodness, excuse me. I am definitely going to have to take a bit of a nap, though. It's one of the reasons I need to get this done, is because there's going to need to be some laying down and resting this week. But that's how I roll. It's like I try to get stuff done on Sunday and do a coding stream on Monday, and wherever else I can fit it in, I'll do music jamming or whatever. And we'll see how this works out. So, I do wonder whether it's all, like, is it mostly Europe and the UK? That, because there's this thing where people might be tuning in to check out what I'm doing after dinner. So around about noon at my time, or before it, nobody's showing up because they're all having dinner. But then after dinner, they could show up. But then once it gets to be around 6 o'clock, that's midnight in Europe. So there's that. So let's not do that, but instead let's do this. We do not want... Actually, no, we do absolutely want. We regen is param 2 here too. And our low pass filter is this one. So that has to be high to get thunder, otherwise no point bothering. And then we're still multiplying it by 0.1. And then we're going to go in here and get where we're updating it. I feel like the hell am I doing with interpolate? Oh, I see. That is just another factor on the filter. That didn't exist in the other one. And then lastly, but where we're going, we're actually applying it and calling it feedback A instead of feedback E. And feedback A plus thunder. And that's theoretically what we had in the other one. So what we got to do now is test it out and find out whether that's true or whether it's not true. Oh, you're in the UK, Stereo? Man, you are, oh, Portugal? I guess I'm not wrong. Okay. I will bear that in mind as far as streams are concerned, of doing stuff that fits into presumably people's evenings. Like, I'm certainly not going to be conveniently able to do stuff for your mornings because it's going to be, like, dark in the wee hours. But I could certainly fit into European people's evenings nicely that way. Let's see. Boop. That's the same as it previously was. We don't need to keep updating this. But we're going to investigate this, assuming I can move it around. There we go. And now let's try that and see how that shapes up. First, comparing it to the previous. So that basically works. Now let's see what we get with the other one. It'll either be fine and great and perfect, or everything will be wrong. So let's find out. Okay, that's our longest delay time. Well, I'll be finishing up pretty soon, man. But that's not the longest delay time, that's the longest set. So this is our regen. And our filter is a very different kind of filter. It's that double IIR filter again. So I feel like one of the things I'm discovering, well, it needs to be, longness can't be fully cranked either. Like if darkness is fully cranked, with this one it's silence. Because you can sweep this safely. But this does give me an opportunity to, like, watch on the meters, just take it a tiny bit off. And see if we get anything creeping up, because it'll still, like, sub DC offset will show up fine on this. It'll be very hard to filter out. So time to see whether I can make anything pop up out of the silence here. Signs point to yes, indeed. So I need a little adjustment. I got a wump wump sound. So this requires a little adjusting. But this form of testing is in fact working. If I had it at 0, I'd be generating enormous high-powered DC voltages, but you wouldn't hear them because it would literally turn it into silence. It would be filtering it down to DC, I think. Let's find out. It's clinging to the silence. Okay, stop that. Alrighty. Let's take a moment and see whether other settings here. Yep, it's running away. How about this? Yeah, I think it's going to run away at a bunch of different settings. Even this. So we now have to fiddle with it and adjust it slightly so that it won't do that, and then we'll be more or less on the... Because again, if this is sustaining and building up, that means that literal thunder sounds, as in subsonic shakes of air pressure, have infinite sustain. And that's kind of what I was shooting for. I was shooting for a taper off where the deeper stuff sticks around a little longer, and this is it's demonstrably doing that. It's just not doing it in a useful way yet. So for my last half hour of hacking on the stream, I'm going to address that. Because I do kind of need to make sure that it doesn't ever flip out completely. So let's see. This is a likely place to do my alterations. This stuff is all pretty generic. 1.0 minus the regen times the filter, and less filtering means it'll quickly not be doing as much of that, and 0 filtering means you will have 0 additional thunder amount. It's related to how much the noise darkens. It's an alternate way of making the noise darker by bringing the subs in, or at least slowing the rate at which they decay, because it's not really intended to cling to them quite the way that it's doing. So we're going to firstly take away that extra value entirely and see whether this 0.99 is still doing this runaway thing. Because again, there's no guaranteeing that that's a safe setting, but the getting to that 9906 was part of the process of dialing in how extreme I could make it. Looks to me a little bit like, oh no, hang on, That is definitely feedback setting in. We don't want it to be doing this. I assume you can see that. I'm showing it on the screen. So let's continue fussing with it. Let's tie it to dry wet. Dry wet. Oh, what goes up to, well, no, what goes up to 2, but it can't be made higher than 1, so that's still safe. Otherwise, it would just blow up violently, immediately. So with this, I hopefully can dial in how much less I need to make it, because the dry wet factor is not going to alter the algorithm. It's just showing me how much of the initial click is there. And the way I've got it set up, I'm actually getting full wet at 50%. That is something that I did to the new Verbity that is not happening with the other reverbs. So it was working for me in my context, and we will see whether other people like that or not. Again, innovations, woot. Feedback and not. Feedback and okay, it's going away. Darkness is very high here, so in fact, let's make it even higher, magnify the factor as much as possible. So 495 will get me a useful value. And that does appear to have been the max. Having darkness at almost 0 is the way to get as much of that happening as possible. But very high regeneration and very high darkness. Let's max them both out and see if we can get that feedback happening. Science point to know, but let's make it happen. Unless it doesn't want to. Okay. Apparently our sweet spot for exaggerating the low frequency building effect. Oh, there it goes. Oh, there it goes. It's coming. Oh, hello. Hello. Regen is having quite an effect. If I go to a smaller regen with this high darkness setting, it's getting exaggerated. This is as much as I can get. Let's find our setting for making it dial back here. 49 perhaps? Again, the shorter you make longness, the more intensely this value gets fed back in. Also, the shorter you make longness and the darker you make darkness, the more this subsonic value gets fed in. So this is the max, you just can't hear anything. And if I can dial this in to some appropriate setting, Here it's taken off again. 92. And with this, I'm looking at the... Yeah, we've got just about DC coupling in this whole system. Dang. So this might be... I'd like it to be on the verge of this behavior on any possible setting. It's just a good question as to how that's going to work. Like, you really wouldn't want to... I actually kind of think of it, this is a very unlikely setting anywho. Here it comes again. And 1.0. So in theory, this is continuing to go. And then if I bring it back, it's creeping up. Tricky work. I'm not at all sure whether maybe I need to tweak this setting. Like, I'd like it to linger a little bit more at the super long ones, but it makes no sense at all to build up a DC offset when the decay is next to nothing. Maybe I can make it a factor of the real value that longness is putting out, and that'll give me an option. Well, let's open up Xcode, seeing as I quit it by mistake, and try to remember what it was I just said. So yep, thunder, bada bing, that part's correct. That will be satisfactory. We're now adjusting this, so here's the thing. Param2 is our parameter that'll go from 0.0625 to 0.031, That's not that easy to get the relevant factor out, but maybe I can anyway. So if I go in here, and I go regen divided by the max number it can be, that should give me 1 at full crank, but then 0 is going to be a smaller number now. Let's see what we got. compiled anyway. I'm pretty sure this just solved the too much feedback at very low settings, which make no sense. And it's a question of to what extent do I have the misbehavior going. Give us full crank. No? Give us full crank with this. And remember this mid setting being a place where I got more action out of it. Of course, if we're dialing back this end of the control, then it's probably going to be more over here. Well, we're still not actually getting anything, so let's quit out of that and thunder times 0.99 times wet. Let's go directly over to fooling with the feedback thunder amount. That cutoff is probably fine. The changes we were making there were not great anyhow. Oh, I know what I can do. Let's take this and move this to where we can simply amplify it. And then carefully set wet to be exactly 1. And then we can dial in whatever adding or subtracting we want. Giggity, verbity rather. And immediately set it, let's immediately set it to what's actually 0.5. Let's do maximum longness and go from there. Hello, run away. Where are you? Come on. Come on, you can do this. I know you want to. There's a noise. There we are. Thank you. Am I failing to understand something in the code here, or have I not copied it over? No, it looks like I copied it over. Let's build it again. So we're making this. This is all set the way it's meant to. 1.0 minus. Do I have this correct? Hey bro, it's the next day. Mondays are always a day that I do live streaming, but I'm going to be stopping in about 20 minutes. Yeah, like I work for Patreon and on the internet and as a YouTuber, so yeah, of course I never rest. You'll probably be seeing even more of me. If, of course, you want to. So here's the thing that I changed, is I changed it from getParam2 to region divided by this. So that should have given me a setting where the max is yeah, that should be putting it to a setting of 1 when doing this. I think this is what happened that made it stop doing anything though. This WED is just a trim control. That wouldn't be doing it. It's this change that is not doing what I anticipated. If I put it back to 1.0 minus get parameter kparam2, well, here I can do something else. If this isn't going to work, I'll do something else. Because we were kind of in the zone there for a while. So full crank would be 0. That being our way of dialing it back. And setting it to 0 would be the maximum amount of effect because the regeneration is the least. I like Acoustica Audio. They helped me get the VSTs together. It's one of the few people who pitched in and helped me get through that kind of stuff. On the other hand, I would not be combining with them. We have wildly different ways of doing things. Oh God, excuse me. So this should now have changed things. And if this works, I can no longer get the feedback with everything set to 0. Or at least what I meant when I said everything set to 0. It has nothing to do with the UI. We have different attitudes as far as how you make the sounds. And it didn't do a thing. Yeah, that's still going in a runaway. I will exaggerate this even further. Just to fully see it. Okay, that didn't do what I thought. So, the thunder amount needs to be smaller when we have that at very low setting. So let's go to 0.8 minus 1 times 0.8. It'll still go to 0 in the final analysis. We could even get funky and say minus 0.7, so there's still going to be still some of it there. So this number is going to direct how much suppression I have on the low settings of this control. And if it gets smaller, then the low settings of the control will cut back this feedback. This controls how much the high settings of the control do. So if it's the same as this, then the high settings will be nothing. But if it's smaller than this, then the high settings will be something. Let's keep them matched for now, because I can quickly get into super regeneration with that. It depends upon what you want to do. It really does. I mean, look at a plugin like Density or Drive. That is a filter. It is a high-pass filter. The high-pass filter is happening before the distortion so that you can get more grind out of it in the way that it does. Okay, that's feedback. Let's drastically change it just to see if what we think is happening is really happening. This should absolutely make it stop going into feedback. Otherwise, I am misthinking it. Same setting, did it change? Huh. Okay, let's go full tilt bonkers. Excuse me. Zero times get parameter param3 times 0.1. Okay, I'm going to call that successfully not going into feedback. Let's go from there and see what it thinks about 0.1. Now we needn't fool with this because we're doing it in this iterative way now. Not worrying about that bit. So 0.1, does it go crazy? I'm going to say no. What about the other extreme? And I'm going to say also no. So we had it at 0.5 and it was still doing the thing. Let's duplicate that again. Make sure it's still happening. What hardware? Oh, that's actually easy. Get an API 3124 plus preamp. Never mind channel strips. Get good preamps. That's a very good choice. That will be 4 preamps, and it acts like a channel strip. It's what you use for getting stuff into the computer, and you can use it forever, and you can resell it for basically the same price that you bought it. Especially if you don't like beat it up. Never mind channel strips. Do that. You probably don't need EQ and compression and things nearly as much as you think you do. There is no fixing back stuff that was lost in the original capture. 3124 plus. And now we got feedback again. Yep, there it comes. What about another setting? Not so much. Okay, we're dialing in our settings now. Let's try 0.4. Yeah, I mean, I've been using the same preamplifier for, geez, well over 10 years. If you can get something like, that's what you're hearing this microphone through. If you can get something like that once, you're good for ages. And the neat thing about API is it looks intensely uninspiring. So if you get robbed, people will steal something with more bling and more blinky lights and stuff. And the API will look so boring that it won't be like, oh my goodness, that must be valuable. It's covered with gold. Like, no, the API looks dead boring, but it is gold. It's wonderful. So let's see, we're going to try 4. $3124 plus. It is a rack mountable 4-channel microphone preamplifier. Doesn't get more legit than these. Arguably Neve. Anything you get by API that is a preamplifier should suffice. If you want another form factor, if you want like 500 series, it's all going to be as good. The reason I suggest the 3124 is you get 4 of them and it's rack mountable and you don't have to buy a lunchbox to go around it and so on and so forth. It's kind of a sweet spot for getting the maximum stuff done. You know, if you break one by running like a Marshall stack into it or something like that, then you'll have other ones also in the machine. You know, you can blow one of the preamplifiers up by mistreating it, and then other ones are likely to still be fine. That actually happened to me at one point. I had one that I broke and sold it for very, very cheaply, going like, you could probably get this fixed somehow. And man, it just got snapped up instantly. Because there were still 3 working. Actually, no, I swapped the API op amp between 2 sides, and it turns out it was the op amp that was busted because I had broken it. And so I took out 2 channels in the process of doing that, and that's when I just sold it. I was like, I'm not fooling with this anymore. This is going in a bad direction. I do not know about Neve Shelford. And we're just on the verge of feedback for this. Cool. I can't be drinking coffee. I'm going to have to go and take a nap or whatever. I'm about 5 minutes away from being done with the stream, although I can run a little bit over, I think. It's one of those things where it's like, I would like to finish this particular calculation. I will call it a day once I've gotten this one sorted out, because I've gotten very close, and that's always the way that it goes. It's like you get really close, and then 4 hours later, you're like, ah! Now, 3.5, I might be zeroing in on another amusing quality, which is I might be zeroing on the golden ratio by accident for no good reason. Except no, 35 is still too much. It is gradually feeding back here. So we need to make that go away. Let's try 0.3. Once I get this sorted out, I can start making the long regenerations build up themselves by fiddling with this number here. But first I need to get the 0 setting not going into feedback. Granted, I've got it set in an extreme way, but still, it shouldn't do that. So are we feeding back? No, we are not. Okay, so that was enough to get it to fall away. That is satisfactory. Seems to be doing it. So now, trying to see what else we do. 0.3 minus, and if this is turned all the way up, that makes it less. So let's see, first of all, see what happens when we have it at 0. Get param 2 minus 0, meaning that there's no effect to this and it's only related to param 3. It's not affecting regen at all. Is it even a part of regen, or am I just overthinking this? Does it have nothing to do with regen? Because if I turn regen up as far as it'll go, in theory, that'll make it more easy to just feedback and blow up. But I could be wrong about that. So right now, this is the setting where if we do this thing and set it like this, it's still not going to go into massive feedback. But if we go into this, it presumably will, unless it doesn't. Oh, here it comes. I'm assuming this shows in your screens too. That is definitely a effect. The question is how much, and also the question is it linear? Am I going to get the same deal going on set in the middle? Actually, this will give me a good way of dialing in how much of the change to apply. Because at 1, we're falling away slightly. At maximum regen, it's building up. So it's a question of how much of this is in play to get the max to not build up. Let's build it up first and then start seeing what we do. 0.2, still sneaking higher. 0.25, nope, still sneaking higher. 0.2 proper. Okay, that's something I can believe in. What about 0.21? Are we still falling back? Yes, we are. How about 0.22? Build up. Thank you. .22 is still falling back. Therefore, oh, interesting. Realize, we can swap, it's like multiplication as commutative. 0.3 minus 0.22 times yeah, I think it was get param3 I was manipulating. What the hell was I manipulating? I was doing something, but I think I was moving param3. Let's just follow that line of logic out. If, in fact, it was 0.22 and I was able to manipulate this and it did something, that means that minimum is 0.3 and maximum is a lot smaller than that. Therefore, yeah, because I'm effectively multiplying this by this instead, because they're all being multiplied by each other, so it's all associative, I guess is the term. Let's see if it works. Dum-de-dum. Coming in for a landing here, I think. And that is not going into runaway, nor is it doing it here. Okay. Darkness. Now let's finally hear it again. All of this is being done by meters alone. The programming language this is essentially C. It says verbity CPP because the overall thing, like this stuff here, is C++. I think I'm not lining up on the screen properly. There, now you can see it maybe. So this part is C++, but the code that I'm doing here is pretty much entirely straight up C code, because you can code C in C++ by not using any of the stuff around in these places. Instead, you're just sticking with this simple stuff here, and this is all very much straight up C language. I would not know how to make such a VST plugin. Yes, I see too. I see what you did there. So let's see, maximum longness. More darkness. And I'm figuring out whether, because if I make the darkness extreme, we're getting closer to the thunder effect, which is what I had in mind. You can't really hear it, but oh, my subwoofer is still working and it didn't just break it with all that stuff. That'd be terrible. I'm thinking it feels like I didn't break it, that it's still there. I feel like this is getting done. I've got my subwoofer boosting thing in here. It is not going into runaway on any of its settings, but it's getting as close as it can with all of its settings. And that's kind of what I had in mind. I feel like I can almost hear it a little bit. I can almost hear the thunderiness in there. Let's crank this way up. Darker. And lastly, now that that seems to be working, let's do a final test on it using good old Alien Kittens, which will put a lot of bass into it, and then we'll totally hear that. Yep, the subwoofers are alive and well. Check that out. So here is our thunder effect. And as we bring darkness in, we'll start to hear, oh God, yeah, check that out. So we can barely hear it, but it's pushing subsonic frequencies really high, like up to -12 in the meter, even though what's audible is much less. I'm getting like half a hertz in there. So deep reverb. Deep reverb with very little sustain, except for the sustain happens on the subs. This should sound a lot like approaching a loud gig from very, very far away. And I'm going to say yes, that does. Yeah, it's rattling my walls. I'm really liking the fact that longness can be really short for this. Away we go again. And we're going to call that successful acquisition of the thunder effect from Forward Verb into Verbity for release next week. I'm going to call that successful. Verity Thundery. This is going to have all kinds of uses. And on that note, let's say goodbye to chat. And I will talk to you folks next week, and you'll be seeing this plugin turn up around Sunday. Maybe I'll have a different jam for it. Maybe I'll do like a deep space ambient thing with it. That might be fun. We'll see. Anywho. Laters.